A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. This being a Friday, we review the major events of the week, and we'll be looking at three main issues. We'll be tracking the presidential candidates who have been traversing different parts of the country. This week, NRM's Yoweri Kaguta Museveni spent the time in the West Nile region. Last week, he was in Lango sub-region. And political observers say that these are critical for him to balance where he might lose some votes. We know in the West Nile region, the NRM enjoys a larger following, having dislodged the opposition there, which had taken root in that particular region. The NUP candidate, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, spent this week in eastern Uganda. He was in the areas of Teso and today was in Busia. He spent last week in Busoga, an area that NUP considers as a battleground similar to Uganda region. FDC's Nathan Nandala Mafabi was in Bugisu and Teso regions. It's claimed that being a son of the soil, he might actually perform well in those areas. Alliance for National Transformation's candidate, retired Major General Greg Mugisha Muntu, was in Ankole sub-region and later on today was in Mubende areas. Now the two main candidates have been pulling crowds. They have a challenge, however, to turn them into votes. They both have manifestos. The NRM is protecting the gains and holding on to them for the future. NUP, on the other side, is promising radical reforms in governance, the economy, and service delivery. We'll be looking at that deeply to understand the issues that are shaping this campaign. There's this NUP IPOD situation. The debate continued this week. We know NUP indicated to the IPOD secretary that they wanted to join, something that they had rejected in the past. But the explanation they are giving this time around, they are saying IPOD is now constitutional. It has the force of law, unlike in the past when it was an NGO. They also say the money they are supposed to get through this arrangement is also theirs by law because they qualify to be part of the political parties that need to get these resources. They are blaming the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, Norbert Mao, for creating several roadblocks. They claim that he apparently does not like the NUP and he will do anything possible to ensure that they do not receive this funding. But this week, Norbert Mao was in the news actually telling the party leader of NUP that do not listen to noise, just come and join IPOD so that you can be on the table, not only to receive the funding, but also to dialogue about the key issues in this country. The question that the NUP is also asking, what will they be dialoguing on that cannot be resolved elsewhere? We'll also be looking at the death of a political stalwart in Kenya. Former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga died following a heart attack in India, where he has been undergoing treatment. Now, the 80-year-old ran unsuccessfully for presidency 5 times. Most tributes that have been sent in speak of a great politician who loved his country. The current president of Kenya actually said that despite his passion for politics and leadership, Odinga was not power-hungry and worked tirelessly for peace. I have a panel of 4. The 3 are already here. I will introduce them. The Honorable Paul Mwiru, lawyer, member of the National Unity Platform. He is the coordinator of this political party in parts of Busoga. Good evening, Honorable Paul Mwiru. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra.
Thank you. Good evening, listeners and viewers. I'm delighted to be here once again.
Thank you so much. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, researcher, and columnist with the Observer newspaper. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And Mr. Ronald Egesa, a political and business strategist. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you here.
Good evening, Kenneth, and good evening to our listeners and viewers.
We expect to be joined by Mr. Tony Tumukunde. He's a lawyer and NRM member and pundit on legal and governance matters. Gentlemen, let's begin this discussion, and I want to begin with you, Mr. Egesa, to share with us your overview about what you've seen so far with the candidates, the presidential candidates, traversing the different parts of this country. You can tell us where they're likely to gain or lose, and how so far you've seen the campaign progressing.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, for inviting me. Now, on the top 2 issues that you presented, I have to give a summary at the start that actually addresses both the bit of tracking the way presidential candidates are going about the presidential campaign and the NUP IPOD situation. for me, what is coming through in both instances is, I just remembered as I was coming back to Kampala this afternoon, the words of David Mamet, the playwright, when he said that old age and treachery will always defeat youth and exuberance.
Old age and treachery
Will always defeat or beat youth and exuberance.
All right.
So I want to look through these 4 words: old age, treachery, youth, exuberance. So the NUP, I will look at them as a youthful political party. I'm looking at the leadership of the party, a party that represents the youth in the murky waters of presidential politics. Then I will look at the NRM led by an old man, President Museveni. And still, I will associate the same man with the treachery in the way they are playing their politics. I'm not attacking the character of the president, but I'm simply saying that they are playing politics in a treacherous manner.
Okay.
Which is, anyway, expected. So, you can see that we have a campaign which is lackluster. Why? Because, this is my analysis. When we are walking into the campaign, it was expected that the security forces will follow the same script they have been following all through. So it will always be a back and forth. So NUP will go up in arms and say, look, they are tear gassing us, they are beating us, they're doing what? Yeah? And it's good we even talked about these things at the start of the campaign. And we said the security forces need to actually style up. And we expected better. Now, as the campaign has progressed, their excesses seem to be reducing. Yeah? So now that means that the narrative of it is the establishment aided by security against our candidate's freedom of movement and speech in the campaign. That narrative is actually being pushed to the periphery. So now the NUP has to come up with something new, which I have not yet seen. There are a couple of issues that they have articulated. They actually did a relaunch of their manifesto. They have articulated a number of issues. But from a political strategy point of view, if you want issues that will actually electrify the campaign, then you must make a few specific issues that appeal to the selfish nature of the voter. Yeah? A voter is a very selfish person, just like the politician. Yeah? So if you come and say, we are going to pay all the people 10,000 shillings, like when we were doing the 2022 campaign for Azimio in Kenya, there was that promise of 6,000 shillings every month to old persons. So such a promise becomes easy for the average voter to decipher and associate with. If you go to the 2001 presidential campaign in Uganda, Dr. Kizza Besigye said, I am going to abolish graduated tax. It was very easy for the average voter to understand. Yeah? He did not have to give a 10-point manifesto. There were about 3 or 4 issues. So an average voter will pick 2 or 3 issues, run away with them. Now that is the framing of the campaign message that I see is missing from the side of the NUP, which is the main contender against President Museveni. The NRM does not need to do anything new. And I haven't seen them doing anything new. President Museveni is still going about the campaign in the same way that he has always done it. The same way he has done his up-country tours, PDM, Bonaba Gagawale, blah, blah, blah. Same old script. Their rallies are, organized by the state. They will have, him talking in a tent. He doesn't have to go on top of cars. Yeah, he will go in a tent. They have it's as if it's a presidential function. That's how. So there's nothing new, nothing worth talking about. The same old issues. The people just vote him because they don't have, the people in the rural areas, for instance, do not think that there's somebody who is not a military man that will come and dislodge him. And when you think about it, those voters are actually more realistic than the more hopeful voters in the urban areas. The hopeful voters in the urban areas believe that they can actually overwhelm the system and have, say, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi declared president. Yeah? So that's it. So the NRM, I don't really have anything much to comment about their promises. Same old stuff. NUP, I think, can do better. Now that the security forces seem to be running away from the script as we knew it. So the NUP needs to drive the narrative, not to react to a narrative created for them. Yeah, so they need to be, that's why I keep insisting they must be innovative.
All right. Let me try to point out some of the things that I think are new that they are using in this campaign. One, a school feeding program. They are promising free education and feeding in schools at the cost of the government. They are talking about the issues of fishermen on the lakes. They are also talking about the issues of land rights.
What are they going to do with fishermen?
Fishermen, once they get into power, and I hope Mwil will also explain better, they will, return the rights of the ordinary people to fish on the lakes because it affects their income since the UPDF took control of the water bodies.
That will give you a marginal gain in an election.
Okay.
It will not give you, a mass gain of votes. Yeah, how many fishing communities are in Uganda?
At least in different parts of this country, we have people who are fishing.
No, me, I'm talking about things which are universal. They affect many Ugandans, like the school feeding program. I think that would be a very good one. Yeah, if they put a lot of emphasis on it on the campaign trail, yeah, and package it properly. I think that would be a very good one because it touches on almost, the entire country. Yeah, which is not the case with some of these others. These others are just marginal issues. You can always talk about as footnotes, not the main campaign messaging.
All right.
Campaign messaging must always be reduced to not more than 4 items. Yeah? Yeah. 4 items. Then you have it.
All right.
The average voter does not have a memory as good as the one of Dr. Serunkuma,
all right.
who's a lawyer.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to Dr. Serunkuma. We want to hear from his opinion. Dr. Serunkuma, before we go to Honorable Paul Mwiro. Dr. Serunkuma, what's your analysis, having followed the campaign trail?
I think you're being unfair to Honorable Mwiro, who came here before I did. I think you should have spoken before me.
No, actually, I want the issues to come out so that Mwiro can respond.
I don't want to usurp your powers. I'll just go with the vibe. First of all, I need to give credit to the media houses that have done a wonderful job following up the candidates. I wrote on X a couple of days ago that since political parties are getting a vote from the public purse, I think media houses also need a vote from the public purse because the job they are doing, following up on these many candidates, is a public service. And if funding from the public purse doesn't compromise the oppositional identity of opposition political parties, I think all media should be funded in the duty they are doing. Because, our democracy is incomplete without the work of media houses. Democracy has to be seen. And I think the media houses, which are really keeping us posted on the events happening at the different parts of the country, I think they're doing a tremendous job, and they really deserve a vote from the public purse. Okay, I think that I wanted to make that point, first of all. I have a couple of points I need to make. The first is that I really worry that, the opposition people, especially the NUP, have been boxed into an issue-led politics, as if issues really matter in this lodging area, It bothers me so much. Somebody who has written a column for the last 8 years, it bothers me that, we debate the nitty-gritties of somebody's manifesto. As if really in our political dispensation, issues matter to the so-called voter. I think it bothers me that, when you look at the previous campaign in 2021, what Bobi Wine managed to craft was the genius of a non-issue-led politics. One item will get himself out of power. One single item, no other issues were getting this man out of power. I think that was a brilliant campaign. So we got the thing they called the wave, because the wave didn't matter the identity of somebody behind the wave. Most of the people who were successfully voted, the voters didn't even know how they looked like. So the wave was driven on non-issue based. So I think the genius of the Museveni campaign is to box Kyagulanyi into trying to articulate issues, because issues don't really matter. That's my first point. The second point is that I really wish the thing was real. I really wish, when you sit and you watch the crowds that, Bobi Wine is able to put together, you wish this was real. Like if all these people voted, their votes counted. You really wish it was real. But as all of us around this table know, that the counting matters most than the actual voting.
Actually, the announcing.
That we go through the thing, all the fanfare and the emotions that are raised, and the labors and money and sometimes lives lost. We're not yet there into that moment. I guess I hear said that he's happy the campaign is lackluster. It supposedly looks peaceful to a degree, but I think we are not yet there at that critical moment, because you see this state is fish and what's it called, carrot and stick. At that critical moment, it's ready to meet violence into its adversaries. So I don't think we're really yet into the throes and thick of the campaign. I think at this moment it's still exciting, but I really wish it was real, that this thing actually mattered, that if these voters took to the ballot, their votes counted. I wish it were real, but as we know, it's a circus, and I worry that we all sign up to this circus. We go into it. It's exciting. There's so much energy, and the atmosphere is really frenzied. It doesn't really matter. I really wish it was real.
It's people like you, Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, who discourage people from actually turning up to vote. There's a certain number of voters, about 45%, 46%, who actually never turn up to vote. And one would say it's because of people like you.
But it's not my opinion. This is a legitimate opinion. Now that you even cite
you can imagine how many people follow your opinion here on radio, but also in the Observer.
No, as a scholar, opinions tend to be from the bottom up.
Okay.
Not from this way down. I'm a researcher, so which means I follow trends in the public opinion and then harmonize them into an opinion. The third point I wanted to say, and I think I'll stop it here for now, is that this is the season that Museveni fears most. It's the season. You see, for me, I really think that it's not the opposition political players, but Museveni fears this season, because this season is the only time that Museveni allows people opposed to him to freely roam the country. And the closer they come to Uganda, the more they are likely to change what they're looking for in this season. When Bobi Wine comes closer to the seat of government, say close to Nakasero or closer to Entebbe, we'll need to see the actual face of this government, what it means to go through this electoral process. Because for me, I think it's not what the opposition people are able to do or not to do, but the season is, there's so many moving parts. The season is very fluid, that at one point, if people were gathered in Kawempe, campaigning for Kyagulanyi, and they're like maybe 20,000 people, and they're like, forget this election. Let's just walk to Nakasero. You see, that worries Museveni more, because this is an open season that they're able to actually gather in huge numbers. Now think of that moment, that maybe they're in Luwero, or they're in Bweyogirere, or they're in Entebbe, and they decide to change their interest in the electoral process to say, we're not looking for victory. We're not the victory. We're not the ones counting the election, right? My friend Kakwenza Rukirwasheja has been tweeting quite a lot about the biography of the head of the Electoral Commission. You see, he was a prosecutor, a Guinness in favor of Museveni's positions. Now he's the head of the counting, right? So if the opposition's fully get the bravery to say, this is a stupid election. Now that we've gathered in Entebbe, rather in Bwegirire, and we've gathered in Kawempe, we can just overwhelm with these people. And I think that's when we see the true face of this government, because this is the season that Museveni fears most, because that thing becomes a possibility in this season.
All right, Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. We're going to go for a break, but when we return, I have two questions actually as a follow-up to some of the things that you've said, and then we'll bring in the Honorable Paul Mweru. Dear listener, keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. When we return, we will continue looking at what the presidential candidates have been up to as we review the major events of the week. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We continue after this. Well, we're glad that you're still with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. At this particular point, we are tracking the presidential candidates who have been traversing different parts of the country. We're trying to see the messages and also the crowds that have been pulling, but also the general feeling out there. How does this shape up the campaign as we get closer to the first major round of 1 month? They're supposed to campaign for 3 months. What are their fortunes? I have a panel of four. The three are already here. I have Mr. Ronald Egesa, political and business strategist. Honorable Paul Mweru is a lawyer and member of the NUP. He coordinates several districts in Busoga region. Also in studio, Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, researcher, and a columnist with The Observer. We expect to be joined by Mr. Tumkunde Tony, who is a lawyer, NRM member, and a pundit on legal and governance matters. Now, let's continue the discussion a little bit. Before we went for a break, Dr. Serunkuma, you hinted on a number of issues, and one of the things you actually said was that NRM has boxed NUP into an issue-based campaign, and you seem to suggest that probably it's not a good thing on the side of NUP. Are you saying they are not able to articulate policies? Have you looked at their manifesto, or am I getting your analysis wrong? Dr. Serunkuma.
Okay, I hope I didn't carry too long respond to your question, because I think Paul needs to come in. You see, people power was born in a context. The context was not issues. And I gave you a history of 2021, that the wave wasn't about issues. It was about the idea that people power presents a possibility of kicking himself out of office. That was the idea. And that idea is still on the table. Now, the challenge for NUP has been to craft itself as embodying that same idea. And that's been a challenge, because after 5 years in power, in Parliament, they've sort of crafted an identity, an issue-based identity. You see, they seem to be like, we can now talk issues, we can talk policy, we can talk governance, we can talk... But their original brooding wasn't about issues. This is why I wrote in the work of 2021 that they had been voted, because the question was, how come NUP gave these people, many of the successful candidates can't speak English, they can't articulate issues. And I argued their voting was not to debate. They were successful to resist. Parliament was the battleground. Now, after 5 years, they've sort of shifted their identity, and they are weak on that turf.
What would you tell somebody who actually tells you that the long stay of President Yoweri Museveni in power is an issue itself, is an election issue?
Exactly. Now,
and it is articulated in their manifesto.
No, the challenge now is that in 2021, they ably crafted slogans, which embodied a single idea: we are kicking the man out of office. That single issue, if you could call it a single issue, they've been moved away from that single issue. Now, I was actually sort of bamboozled that we are now spending so much time debating NUP manifesto. We didn't do that in the last election. We have so much time to examine it. NUP functionaries are being challenged to explain it, because they're not being pushed into issues. In this country, we have one issue which matters. One, it's not policy, it's not technocratic. It's about the long stay of Yoweri Museveni, and when does he leave?
All right. One more question before I actually bring in Honorable Paul Mweru. One of the major criticisms that NUP has been facing is that if you remove Museveni, what next? And they are responding to they are providing the answer.
That's a technical. That's for you technocrats. Yeah. You're the ones asking, and I can tell you to ask NUP that question. you're asking them the wrong question, because their job is to kick Museveni out of office. Their birth in the People Power movement was simply to get Museveni out of office. And then after that, we will debate what happens next. We'll debate. In fact, I argued that People Power was a project, was a sort of a suicide mission. It dies in success or in failure. People Power had to disappear either with the success of its mission or in failure of its mission. Museveni has to get up. If you fail to remove him, you have to transform yourselves into something else. Now, the transformation is happening, but they're struggling to... It's not part of their birth. They're not born to be an issue-led politics.
Can I give information?
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's hear from you very briefly before we go to Honorable Paul
I
Mwilu.
think it will help Honorable Mwilu. You see, for the last 5 years, President Museveni has made it obvious that this is a transition election. It is an election that presents him an opportunity to manage the political processes that lead to him handing power to his son. Yeah? And it has now become very obvious to the NUP that their main opponent is no longer the old man. It is the son who is waiting in the wings. Yeah? So the attacks from the CDF, the first son, on the NUP presidential candidate was also part of that scheme by the President Museveni camp to show that actually you should be battling this one and not the old man. So that is part of what I think has, changed the focus from removing Museveni from power to issues. Yeah, because even NUP, when they compare themselves to the other side of the PLU, they think that he doesn't present any issues other than saying, I am entitled, this is my birthright. That's the feeling.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Very quickly, we want to go to Honorable Paul Mwilu, but before we do it, our fourth panelist has joined us, Mr. Tony Tumukunde, lawyer, NRM member, pundit on legal and governance matters. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you on the Spectrum
Good
Extra.
evening, Anderson, and it's a pleasure meeting the fellow panelists.
All right. Now, let's shift it to Honorable Paul Mwilu. Honorable Paul Mwilu, you've listened into the presentations of your co-panelists on what they think about what has transpired so far on the campaign trail. You have a candidate in this race, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, and you've heard, apparently, you'll not do very well because of the shift in what you were to what you're pretending to be now.
Pretending.
Thank you.
Exactly what I said.
The choice of words is very
Thank you, Kenneth.
But they're trying, not pretending.
I think
And I hope you're not going to hit at me.
No, actually, I've been looking at that there's a big problem in this country. When you look at the categorization of society, I've said it before, that we have the genius, the average, and the fools. But the genius and the fools take a decision, the average people don't. And you can fall in the cluster, you can choose a cluster you fall, because for this, when you come to the event, what is taking place in the country, what surprises me that actually the very many even elites don't know what an election process is. But they can come and make comment. To start with, I've been at this game. I'm among those who have actually rated with the Electoral Commission. And what I want to tell the public, that actually we can take out from 7 out of 5 and using the process of the vote, if we so wished. How? Elections are declared at polling stations. And I want to, do you know what is going to happen?
Results are announced
at the polling station.
Announced, not declared.
And do you know what is going to happen with the elites on that day, 12th of January? They'll be drinking. They will not even go to vote. The previous election, we had over 7 million adult voters. They didn't turn up. And even Museveni, after even his falsification, the margin between Kyagulanyi and Honorable Kyagulanyi and President Museveni was 3 million votes. That means that there is a certain class of people who don't even participate. But those we are fighting with, they know. Because they knew that the electoral process starts with the electoral process and it ends with the court. They worked around capturing the court system. Council will tell you that if you did an audit in most of the petition which we had added last time, almost 90% were dismissed on technicalities. Because they planned it, they knew where it started. wait, and then where it is going to end. What am I saying? We have studied this electoral system. That's why you see the commission now trying to run away from what we know. Because by law, actually the electoral commission is supposed to give political parties packing lists of ballot papers, their forms, their serial numbers, everything on what's going to be used in an electoral process. Before some parties will not even go to pick their file. That's why whenever they talked about ballot stuffing, you do know that these people don't know what is going to happen. When Justice Byabakama became the chairman and had the by-election in Uganda, I picked ballot papers from a ballot box because I gave my agents the serial number of ballot papers which had been dispatched for a particular person, because ballot paper work at a particular polling station. So there's no way you'd expect a ballot paper of polling station called the Kisa. How would you find a person called the Kisa? I picked them up and even wrote a report to them and say, take your ballot paper. They were never counted. So they realized that we are following even the accountability of all material, all that, but you see the trend hadn't been there before. So when they realized that actually the public now is waking up, that if the big bulk of the elites will be drinking on 12th of January, if they picked interest in this process, because when we invited the elites whom we would call the middle class,
Who are they?
there are people who normally call themselves the middle class.
We
normally see.
Are you one of them?
No, I'm not.
For you.
We normally see many.
What are their
A moment.
characteristics? You know?
They normally drive their vehicles,
What
put
I'm
on
sure-
loud
what I-
music.
what I'm sure
the loud music
And headsets.
and headsets. They're always in the bars here drinking.
You do the same.
I don't. I actually I do none of that. When we started with the fundraising of for our activities as a political organization, we did it under the assumption that the elites in the country, the bourgeoisie, the neocompradors in town, would have even a minute to send something to the cause.
So,
I'm
so,
coming,
so,
they did not.
so you assumed they were NUP?
No,
subscribers?
we did not assume. Actually, to contribute, you actually don't need to be an NUP. Because what takes place in any RM or in any political party affects you as well. See, when we think that the governance issues in the country don't concern us, whether they're in NRM, for instance, they were rehearsing during the NRM primaries on how to beat up people, on how to, all the things they were rehearsing in the NRM primaries. They're going to carry them to the main election. So it was in my interest to see that they carry out peaceful party primaries. Because the culture now would be building that the electoral process is not a matter of life and death. But you see, you are interjecting. I've not even gone now to the real issues.
All right.
As we are crying to the country that please, there is a process where we have an interest as a political party, our candidate has an interest as a person, the state has an interest, and the country has an interest. People can contribute in their drinking, in their lavish life. Now, as we got constrained, I'll tell you in the IPOD issue. As we moved along the way, the sources we had to be on the campaign trail, we were constrained because we don't have now resources. So we said, now how do we continue? Now we said, okay, we enter to this IPOD money. Why don't we get it? It gives us a push. And I'm telling you, the rest was saying, look at these people now of NUP. Now they have now backtracked, meaning they have a role to play, which they did not play. The situation as it obtains, you understand, it takes you to an angle that actually you must carry on with the campaign. You need the resources. The law as is does not allow us to fund more than 200 million from outside the country. We have a budget of the campaign. We cannot move. Now, those were issues which had been raised by my colleagues. We talked about what has been taking place on the trail. It was a deliberate effort. We debated. Whenever I've been going to these polls, when the police engage, we fight and then we fight back and then all those type of things happen. We listened to ourselves and said, now look, we reviewed what happened before. We said that whenever we are going now, there must be a leadership which must engage the police. We started in Usoga. We said, let's start it in my area. I started with the leadership of Usoga. We had the routes and the venues for the rallies in everywhere. And that's why when we started very well. until they wanted to bring in police to ferret from being in Uganda. We had an option to forcefully go to Uganda. We sat and said, no, now we had started well. But even when they were making us pass through the dusty roads, we had an opportunity to meet people who wouldn't have enough turned up for the rally. Though it was dusty and it was wasting our time, because they would make sure that you have less than 6 hours when you look at travel and then the talking. But they say, because security, they normally plot all those routes. They know those routes using the police and then they know that if they fail you to pass through the shortest route, you lose an hour or two on a campaign trail. So the point I'm making that actually it is through engagement, and if we wished as Ugandans, we can have a peaceful election. And this makes a case. Do we need the army? Involvement of the army in the electoral process? So far what we have seen, the answer is no. Because they have been bringing the army just to cause havoc. Let me deal with the last issue. Actually, to my brother here, Doctor, we have looked across the world that all those changes all over the world, they have been caused by the lumpen proletariat, not the elites. Those who actually know that actually they have nothing to lose. The kissers of this world, the guessers, would be actually having a second thought. They would think that maybe they will get a tender to do some consultancy.
Did you ask him about this?
Somewhere.
I don't know how he
No, but you see,
elite though.
no, you see,
Let's allow him to proceed.
because you
But
see,
did you ask him anything about the elite? Did you ask him anything
no,
about the elite?
you see,
Let me proceed, I'll come to you.
Kenneth, my brothers talked, and I was seeing the elitism in their deliberations, because they tried to get an impression that, like even NUP, of course we knew, that's why people have been talking about ideology. These are shared values. We have them, we know them.
Right.
You cannot practice them when there is an obstacle. That's why what my brother...
The obstacle is the elite.
The obstacle now is manifested in two phases. One is Museveni, who has bastardized the politics, and the two, now the elites, who have helped us to be at the forefront.
Actually,
So at the end of the... That's why even himself he concedes that in whatever we do, our biggest people who would understand what we're talking about, they would be the elites. Because when we say that we need a new Uganda, and now we came up with 10 points. For them also to find the interest is the research I will tell you. As Karl Marx said, the idea of class is important. If Kisai understood.
This man sounds very elite.
No, I'm
please, kindly.
You see now, I think the strategy.
Fight with Kisa.
Sorry, my apology. You see, has kept on interjecting until I get off. But the point I'm making is this: that in all what we say, if my brother here, Gesa, is very knowledgeable, and the doctor here, if they chose it, that they participate in this process, they would influence in their areas. You understand?
They will bring more elite
yes,
on board.
yes, elite on board. Like he was saying that he has looked at the candidates we have. Some of them, actually, all of them qualify because they all have the minimum requirements. And the two,
very quickly,
these people who would be participating in the process chose not to.
Very quickly,
some.
I want you to respond to one key issue you talked about,
one?
how you've been boxed into an issue-based campaign.
No, actually, it is what I'm dealing with. That look, when we came out and said that there are issues of strategy, what's the strategy? When you do research, like what you said, why in Uganda, 75% of the population are youth, and 50, almost 0.1%, have no jobs or they are not in school. So it is that population which exists out there that we have to be speaking to them. That's why we knew that we must call a message which resonates with them. Call them the downtrodden. So in all our approaches, you understand, our message focuses on them. But also we said that the likes of Egesa, they are very powerful. Themselves in Kampala here, they have the money. They have the relatives in the village.
You have the money.
Yes, and I'm coming to that. I'm giving an example. You
Conclude
see,
your
you need to
point.
protect me, Kenneth.
You're
So,
protected.
for us, we knew
Mm.
that if Mr. Gesa
Mm.
understand our cause, first, he will support what we are involved in.
Mm.
Two, these days, the village has collapsed. Before, when our fathers, when my father actually was alive, during that time, when we were still young, that whoever people in the town would fail to live in town, they would go to the village and ask for Mzee for money.
And now people are coming
Actually,
from villages.
my Mzee would write a cheat to go to society, to our big brother. Say, you go to society, and then they give you something.
They put it on the tax.
In the tax, they say, no, not something. They would send to the cooperative society, and they would give you money. Whether Mzee had the agricultural produce there or not, they would give money and then they would come back to the village. But now, these days, people in the village are surviving on Mr. Gesa. So if Mr. Gesa wished that he influences the position of people in these villages, they would do.
All right.
That's why it isn't purely a paradigm shift.
All right.
It is us to say that we must have a message which we must target the Gesas and the Serunkumas in the Kampala so they understand that we are not novices in what we are doing. And
Right.
and then the other population, that even if we took power today, there's no harm to call you to come on board.
Yeah,
And
you
give-
want-
and actually,
All right. Let's now bring
give
Let's bring
direction. So it is very wrong for anybody to judge us by saying, "No, these guys they are there." You see, they are non-officials because you see, for us, once we take power, we appreciate the resourcefulness of Dr. Serunguma, the resourcefulness of my brother Tumukunde, the resourcefulness of the Gesa.
I'll come to you.
And they are given a description that does not befit.
Let's bring Mr. Tumukunde. Let's bring Mr. Tumukunde into this discussion. Mr. Tumukunde.
Thank you, Anderson, and to our listeners. I want to give a brief history of the 1980 elections. President Yoweri Museveni, by 1980 elections, which were held on 10th December 1980, his party UPM was just 6 months old. His manifesto was a 5-issue-based manifesto. And when you look at it, it captured corruption and good governance, restoration of peace, democracy and political freedom, economic reconstruction, and self-reliance and national unity. Those were the five issues. Whether they believed him or not, he had issues. Because if you stand as a candidate, a presidential candidate, you are seeking to be an alternative to the person that you want to unseat. And so if you say, I would not agree with people that state that Bobi Wine should not have issues. His manifesto should only be disruptive, name-calling, whatever he's doing, because that alone does not actually create a sphere and an atmosphere of national unity. I'll give you an example. The president, and I think this will be, if not at least the semblance of a peaceful election, we have not seen so much of disruptions by the NRM. We have not seen any single canister of tear gas. The police is not NRM. The police is not NRM. But we have also not seen the political watchdogs have always showed us before even 1 month to the election or 1 month into the election cycle, they have showed us human rights infringements and violations. I've not heard of so much. If they are, then those are political paths like any other country. We have seen it in the US, we have seen it in Germany. Wherever elections are, there are usually political paths that could happen. But also, if you gauge Bobi Wine as a political candidate, then he should be given a circumference that he should actually be given a level at which he should be gauged. For example, if you go to the areas that he has gone, every area and part of the country has its own problems. I'll give you an example. If you're speaking to the people of Teso, they have problems that they want to hear in your manifesto. He was in the areas of Busoga, and you know very well the issue of sugarcane and the low prices and the licensing of sugarcane. And when you reach there, what you do is to name call people and tell people, you see, I used to campaign for this one, I brought him and he did not respect me as his leader, so you must vote him out. people are waiting for issues. Then you tell them, if you vote for me, you will enjoy the benefit of having the best first lady in State House, the most beautiful first lady
Is
ever.
that
Uganda.
actually what he said?
Yes.
He said it, but
Yes.
what is that?
I followed his campaign actually. In Busoga, he talked about the price of sugarcane. He talked about issues of
Yeah,
land. He talked about a number of issues.
No.
I think you're. I think you're being picky.
No, Kenneth,
You're being
just
picky.
one point.
Let's allow him to conclude. I think you're being picky, not so.
You see, if you state a problem, a manifesto gives you a problem, then it gives you a solution. I've had people speak about school children feeding. NRM has done it. In the manifesto of protecting our gains, it is still part of the challenges that we have to solve, and we are giving solutions to that. But also, I'll give you an example. If he crosses to Teso, I don't know when he will be crossing to Teso. The greatest problem in Teso is cattle compensation. Probably also some parts of Teso are under affirmative development action plans. We would want to hear his alternative vis-a-vis those that the president would be speaking. Then if you cross to Butaleja, he has been to Butaleja, you know the problems, what will raise the prices of their cash crop, which is their food crop and cash crops, what would be, what is the problem with Butaleja, the land policy, which land policies does he bring on table? For me, I would not want to gauge a presidential candidate to the level of an LC1, even to the level of MPs. I've seen very many MPs campaign and have ideas that are passing out. I've seen actually also presidential candidates like the Common Man's Party, people like Mubarak Munyagwa, bringing up issues. He was in Kaliro and I was hearing him telling people in Kaliro the problems of licensing, how the people from the West, Honorable Mwiru has been in Parliament. I don't know whether the Sugarcane Act has passed, but that would be a solution to that. Right. Then if you go to, probably if you come to the Central, where there will be vibe, everyone is waiting for Central. I want you to look at what the president will be telling the people of the Central vis-a-vis what the Bobi Wine will be telling the youth. Now, the youth are the majority voters in this country. What action plan do you have for them? The biggest problem of every presidential candidate, certainly that they would fail to answer, would be employment.
All right.
Yes.
Well, all right. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll expand more on these issues, but also taking some of the comments that are coming in from the listeners. As you saw, people are, are racing, are actually interested into. They want to respond to a number of issues that have come across the table, and I'll give you an opportunity to do so. But until then, let's encourage the listeners to actually send in their views via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Spectrum Extra continues after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of a week. I have a panel of four. Mr. Tony Tumukunde, lawyer and NRM member, is a pundit on legal and governance matters. Mr. Ronald Egesa, political and business strategist. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, researcher, and columnist with the Observer newspaper. And the Honorable Paul Mwiru, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform, coordinates several districts in Busoga region. Our topic of discussion, we are reviewing the major events of the week, but at the moment, we want to wind up the discussion on the issue of the presidential candidates who have been traversing different parts of the country. As the different panelists contributed, there was a desire to give rejoinders. And I want to begin with you, Dr. Sorum Kuma, very quickly. You wanted to respond to some of the issues that the Honorable Paul Mwiru had put across. Mr. Kamadi Bionavia, thank you very much for that piece of information. We are working around the corner to address that issue.
Thank you so much, Anderson. You know, it baffles me that on one issue, the people opposing Yoweri Museveni agree with him 120%. What Museveni has done is to tell Ugandans that the intellectuals are useless. That to be educated is to be useless. So Museveni will give you Nabanja, will give you Balambar Gahare, will give you people he himself described as fishermen, fisherwomen. And now the people who are opposing him actually agree that we need uneducated, only entirely senior 6 graduates.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah. And it bothers me that, the people opposing Museveni actually agree with him when he cheapened education. You see, I wrote about school fees week in this country. Everybody is struggling to take his children to school, to get a good education, to become serious individuals. You see, when you look at, I getting a PhD was my father's dream. as a peasant that I go to school and get an education and rise and become a writer. My father died last year, and I think he was very proud of himself that his dream came true. And I think many parents have that dream. What Museveni has done is to cheapen these dreams. To say it doesn't matter. You give me people who can come to parliament, sleep, and wake up and vote. Now, these fellows are starting to agree because we are having this conversation in English. This man here has a way softer life than I can ever dream of under my circumstances. This man has been given a soft life by this government, but now he's here saying elitism is bad and I'm the elite. And he's taking a posture of we wananchi as a mutwa wants. This man came here in a 4-wheel drive. I came here in a ramshackle RAV4. This man is here, and I'm telling you, it's a bamboozling thing the way they cut these postures. And that's why I keep telling you, Anderson, that we signed up to a circus that the people opposing Yoweri Museveni agree with him to a greater degree. One little point I need to tell you is that people don't understand that actually the non-eliteness of our politics is actually in the law. Museveni actually transformed the law to cater to attract many non-elite. Museveni in 2005 had an affront on Haji Mayanja Chivirige specifically because Mayanja Chivirige would blast Mr. Museveni that he has never had any public service job. So if he left office, he has nothing else he can do. So Museveni introduced a law which turned politics into a choice between livelihood and politics. He said, I think Nsibambi pushed this law. Nsibambi gave a phone call to Mayanja and told him, you keep blasting our man, that if he lost, he will not have anything to do. Because for Chivirige Mayanja, every time he lost, he will go back to Makerere. So Museveni pushed a law which attracts the unemployed, the private people, struggling lawyers. I don't know if you're a lawyer. Struggling business people.
Struggling one.
If you look at the biggest composition of a parliament is by people from the private sector and hitherto unemployed people who are struggling their different careers to join parliament.
Equated resignation as a requirement for one to contest.
So by this legal provision, Museveni kicked people who are already serving the country in the public service from crossing into politics. Now, about 20 years later, the people fighting Museveni are actually chanting his vibe.
Isn't that the fundamental change?
So you see people fighting Museveni have all forgot about this history. They are repeating his talking points. And they are cutting a posture of wananchi. Look, as somebody has often said, our peasant parents took us to school to be better than them. So you can't turn around and say to be a peasant is the pinnacle of goodness. It doesn't work like this. Is why our parents took us to school. So I'll leave that at that. It really bothers me that I grew up in the slum. At some point I don't even know why they call me elite, because you see, my story is Bob Wandi's story. I was raised in the slums of Mafobida. And through hard work, I went to university by the grace of aid to government of Uganda. I went to did a PhD, and people call me an elite because I like to speak English. And also what bothers me is that these non-elite people, non-educated, want that we think the same way. Like that they want me to be persuaded to understand that their position is the best. So I need to understand and follow them. So why did I go to school?
I think we need to define one elite.
I know,
because the job is that they're educated.
Are you putting Honorable Paul Mwiru in the category of non-elite?
No, because he spent his entire time.
He put himself there.
I think Honorable Mwiru.
But I think I need to move on.
I want him actually to explain this. I think Honorable Paul Mwiru is an elite who took up the call of providing leadership to the country, which you haven't.
Is
no,
an
no,
elite.
no, no,
Let me just finish. Let him respond. I'll come. All right,
Honorable MP.
No, but this is the moderating.
You see, as John Nagenda used to say, if I have a column in a leading national newspaper, I am in a leadership position. I would have become an MP.
All right.
So if you're saying that Mwe ranks higher because he became an MP, I've done a job degrades by without pay for the last 8 years. But
I didn't say you ranked higher. You're putting words in my
mouth. Because you said what am I doing?
Let's go to Honorable Mwiru. Honorable Mwiru, you want to respond?
You see,
but may I have a response?
You're coming.
You see, from the way my brother Serunkuma and Egesa here started the debate, is that they were trying to diagnose the problem, and they were saying, you see, the prescription we were making was not the right prescription. And I did respond by saying that first, even on our side, we see that actually there are two type of people to be talked to. The other downtrodden group exists. But our biggest problem now, as of now, it is the elites in courts who seem not to have a lot of interest in what's taking place in the country.
They actually
That's
think-
why.
they actually think
That's
you
why
can-
actually.
you cannot provide
No.
leadership.
Actually, we cannot what?
Provide leadership. You and your political party.
Where are they? Actually, when actually I came here, I told Mr. Gesa here that I get happy when I hear many of you coming up now and not leaving it a duty of individual to be done actually pushing some of these issues. That if the elites came up and took up the mantle of leadership to this country, maybe the problem, they will not be having a lot of the problem the way they are. But lastly, this issue, I've had actually many. I don't want to, it was not between the mayor and Dr. Serunkuma per se, but we also have a different view about our education system, the way it is. If it glorifies, if it doesn't take account into our indigenous knowledge, Council here will tell you that if you look at the Education Act, it glorifies the Western education as what actually matters, and our education system here, it does not matter. There are even other people who think that the indigenous knowledge is as important as the other, and as the list of Mr. Gesa's time should be helping us. How do we get back to ensure that we tap into the indigenous knowledge as well? What I also don't agree with, that if someone has a degree the way I have, therefore I have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. That's why we have been arguing that we want to see many, the likes of Dr. Serunkumas, coming up to give some, to participate in this thing. For him, it may be because he does. He writes columns, he participates in debates. What about others? Maybe he took it that I'm giving an example of him. That's what it's taking to be like a personal thing.
I am here.
But for me, is here, and I guess I normally hear him. There are men out there who actually less concerned about what is taking place.
Right.
And also, once we're in the field, actually, we find the food
They're
soldiers.
actually drinking now.
Yeah, we find the food soldiers. They're not very nice.
So
All right, Mr. Gesa.
okay, I want to talk about two things. Number one, when our brother Tony here was submitting, I wanted to rebut something. I find it strange that political actors in this campaign want to dictate how their opponents go about their campaign. Yeah, politics is a contact sport. Some people play the kind of football. Those who are familiar with the English Premier League, there used to be a guy called Sam Allardyce. Whose kind of football? Yes, the guy whose football is about hard tackle. They just make the game ugly. Yeah. So even in politics, somebody can choose that our style is going to be confrontational. If you've been on the Kenyan campaign trail, you see President William Ruto saying all nice things about the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Is the same man who would come and say, I even doubt this man's qualifications. You see? You would attack his character. Yeah? And Raila would pay in kind. He would say, no, mwizi ni nani? And he would give the chorus, the what?
The mic to the audience.
Yeah, and they would say, mwizi ni Ruto. Yeah? So it's a contact sport. But at the end of the day, these guys would say, no, my brother, that was just politics. Yeah? So they would come back and say, now we have to drive a nation forward. So you cannot dictate how your opponent goes about their campaign. If the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi feels that for him to get his candidate to be voted in Bujiri, he has to attack the incumbent in Bujiri. That is his strategy. It is part of implementing the strategy he has come up with in the election. Don't dictate to him the issues that he must, articulate and how he must articulate them and the talking points. You cannot. If NRM wants to do an issue-based campaign, so be it. In fact, NRM has been bastardizing the election campaign. If you have chosen this time and you have chosen to go a different way, we are happy. We appreciate. Now, try to force these guys to do that. What I was telling the NUP, and I think Honorable Paul Miru got me wrongly. Me, I always, this is what this is how I describe my work, that I am practical and refined. These words are deliberate. Why? I look at data. So, like Doctor told you, many of the voters in Uganda believe that elections cannot change the president. If you do research, even if the NUP did the research all over the country, the outcome will show you that many Ugandan voters believe that elections will not change the president. But it does not mean that they distrust the entire electoral process. They do actually believe that MPs, the elections are largely fair. Yeah?
It is the same process.
Yeah, it is the same process, but the stakes are higher at the presidency. And the interest of the incumbent is to maintain the status quo is higher at the presidential level.
All right, as you wind up.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is I've already done that. So leave the opponents to you to apply their strategy. The second point I want to talk about is this thing of elitism and all that. Elitism and elites are the most abused words or misused words in our electoral discourse. Yeah? In actual sense, you might find that on our table here, there might be one or two people who would fit in a proper description of an elite. We actually don't all fit there. Why? If you're talking about elites in politics, you talk about the actual guys who can move the needle. Yeah? For example, when I explain the difference between Ugandan politics and Kenyan politics, I always say, in Kenya, the British left a ruling elite. The dynasties, the Jaramogi Oginga Odingas, the Koinanges, the Kenyattas. These guys would sit and say, okay, let's agree to go this way. You capture the opposition, you go this way. So these guys have been in some kind of a cartel. Yeah, that's why you'll see when we start talking about Raila Odinga, I will tell you that he has been financed by Kikuyu capitalists. But people are thinking that he's a raw kingpin. No, it's because they have an elite consensus. In Uganda, we do not have a political elite with a consensus. Right. What has happened is President Museveni transformed himself into the only elite. That's why he tells you he's the only man with a vision. Right. He's the one who decides where the country goes. All right. So we only have one elite in Uganda. All right. We don't have other elites.
Mr. Tumukunde, Mr. Tumukunde, let's hear your view
I think
in
politics, there is a belief that you magnify according to how people take you. I don't agree with the fact that people disparage Parliament. It has lost out on elites. The last time I checked, I think it has over 8 PhDs. It has 231 degrees.
We were actually told it's the most educated parliament in the history of Uganda.
And those that have a minimum of A level, they are only 18. So it shows you they just pretend when they are there. Probably they don't know what to do, or they keep quiet, or they are taken up by the power of numbers, but they are well educated. You would look at Dr. Chitutu, Dr. Musenero, Dr. Chris Variomusi, Dr. Bright Ramirama, all these people that are in NRM. No, they are not PhDs. They are educated, yes, bachelor degrees. And I've not said they are PhD holders, but they are well-educated people. But I would also tell you that the president, like Mr. Gesa states, that the president is taken as the only elite in NRM, a man with a vision. And I don't think so. But in politics, you can choose to be a man with a vision. Honorable here has an LLB and a master's probably in law. But he has chosen that his presidential candidate of MDD has a vision for NUP. And if he's the magnet...
What are you saying about MDD?
No.
Please, Dr.
That is what...
What are you saying? The LLB
is higher than...
No, it's not bigger, but I'm saying a person of MDD can have a better vision than a lawyer. A person of MDD can have a vision. So why could Egesa criticize President Museveni for having a better vision than other probably medical doctors and follow? Well, President Museveni has a degree in political science. Yes, has a degree in political science.
All right. As we shift from, are you done?
No. But
Please,
also to sum up, if you, I think I would support Doctor when he says most of the elites have been fought, and it kills the strata, the political strata, and it goes.
I
also
think
to
you should use the word intellectual instead of elite.
Okay, intellectual.
You want to choose the way
But
you
also,
submit.
but also you would see if you disparage a person that seems to have substance over what you believe is political affluence, political fervency. We have seen in their political party where people are castigated because probably they appear to be more educated, more intellectual than others, and they say those will not actually rhyme with the rhythm of the voters at the grassroots. So the president and their political heads are killing their party on the basis of fear for intellectuals. That is what I would say.
But I'd say something before
before
we lose it. The point I had to drive home, as Dr. Sorokuma was saying before, that what brought about the need of speaking to the intellectuals or the elite is in that way, is that when we went freestyle and we were targeting the downtrodden,
The rubber dabber.
the downtrodden as our targeted group, people of course kept on with views, and so you see, for us, you left us out. It's like you only targeted those people. That's why this time around, if you looked at our manifesto, we tried to even saturate it and pack it, so that at the end of the day, whoever cares to read.
Do we have that manifesto in 1 minute, 2 minute video clips?
We're also actually working on that. Yes.
And Anderson,
All right, very quickly.
Anderson, there's a point I think we lost. I want to return to the point I made at the very beginning, that insisting, you listen to this man, Tony, he enumerates the issues, and I think that's the trick. Insisting that Bobby Wine comes up with superior issues, way superior than the NRM, is the trap of his electoral process. And that's the genius of the NRM, that they've pushed you away from your birth and
Fighting on the
identity
streets.
as street fighters and turned you into technocrats. And I think that's the trap, that's the genius of the NRM, that they've successfully, and you've bought into it wholesale.
We have not bought.
Because now you're insisting on articulating the ABC
For
in your manifesto.
a certain class of people who seem not to
No,
be.
because look, I'm telling you, what the NRM has done successfully is take you from your identity.
All right.
You are street fighters. This is why you even see contradictions, that now people asking questions. Why are you kicking Sagona if you become an issue-based political unit in favor of an artist? Because your identity,
It
your
is more than
original-
that. Actually, I had even
your original identity.
don't engage into fallacies about you see someone being feared. Actually, the party president is the consumer of intelligence, the chief consumer of intelligence in an organization.
No, you ask him, did
So-
President Museveni fear Mambabas? Because
So
he
anyway,
was sharper than him.
I want to leave it at that. But you see, the president of the party is the chief consumer of intelligence in the country.
All right.
And the decisions you see making, of course, the number of issues, so which I do not delve into them.
All right. We have a comment coming in here from Tom. A listener who says, remind the panelists that in some countries, it's the farmers, the peasants, who carried out revolutions, so they should not think it was the elite. Then he says, even in military coups, it's the lower ranks, captains, majors, and colonels who actually overthrow the government, and not the major generals or the generals. Well, that's a comment there. I think we need to reflect on it and what it implies to the discussion we are having here. And then we have another comment. John Baptist from Buya says, why is FDC following the footsteps of NUP? I don't know what he means there.
Yeah, no, wherever NUP goes, they come.
All right.
Immediately.
We have a comment from Okello Sam who says, this campaign is the most boring. Prophecy of DP Mao has been fulfilled. Meanwhile, in Lango sub-region, we are only focusing on MPs and many local positions because our president, Jimmy Akena Obote, was denied. We are going to protest by writing name of Jimmy Akena Obote on presidential ballot, which means invalid votes expected in Lango, especially for the president. All in all, I love NUP, but I'm UPC original. Then somebody writes in and says, I remember the crowd that Dr. Besigye pulled in 2001, 2006, for example. All the people in Mbale town closed their shops and the cricket ground was buzzing for change. What came out of the election was a win for Museveni. Crowds don't count anything. That's why my Charles listening in from Mbale. Another comment comes in. Kenneth, you can easily see that there is increased activity with the CSOs during the election period. I'm tempted to believe that this is the only time for them to make accountability to their donors. I can tell you that after elections next year, all the so-called CSOs will vanish, only to resume work making noise in the 2030-2031 general election. I wish that such advocacy efforts will be throughout, even after the elections. That's Ocheng, someone listening in from Nigeria. He talks about civic education as the area where NGOs are spending more time. There was a narrative, Chagulanyi's president, there was a narrative that if Chagulanyi is a president, they would accept and call him, well, what? Let me read the second part of this comment. He seemed to have lost his way in typing. He says, we cannot see Chagulanyi worried about our worries. It's necessary to inform us that he is aware. That's Henry Chiwenda there with that comment. Tell Dr. Serunkuma that it is indeed true that NUP campaign is still non-issue based. Bobi Wine is taking time attacking President Museveni and his family than explaining to the electorate what would make him the best alternative as president. It's a campaign of radical, dangerous and poisonous propaganda. Besides, I've taken time to read the NUP manifesto anchored on 11 priorities, and actually they are merely statements of needs than strategic goals that need to be achieved. Actually, they are short-term deliverables under NRM manifesto, and the FDC manifesto is only having 5 strategic pillars. If you have time, ask the panelists to actually read through, and then he posts the 11 key issues of the NUP manifesto here, which I don't think I have time to read through. We have another comment coming in. Listeners ought to know the following. Besides feeding school children, NUP will create markets for farm produce, reduce unemployment, curb corruption, and increase workers' salaries. Secondly, this comment here, it says, besides school feeding program, NUP will create jobs and also pay salaries pay better salaries for all the workers in the public service. Then we have another comment. Secondly, the rural folks, like their urban counterparts, have a shared confidence in NUP changing the political status quo in Uganda. This has been revealed by the campaign trail in the rural areas. I'm wondering why the elite in studio have ignored to know the above. That's Kauma Degue listening in from Mitiana. The problem, think NUP as a party doesn't have strategists. I'm very happy to see how Bobi Wine has managed to bring the PhD holders and degrees to talk about him and NUP. More increasingly, Bobi Wine doesn't respond to those background noise, and he moves on with his decisions always. That's Orlando with that comment. A comment comes in from a person who calls himself Anonymous. He says, Kenneth, thanks for the show. Honorable Mao should just accept he has lost relevance in the country. For him, he has sold his party due to anger, so let him and the rest concede defeat and should stop misrepresenting the NUP president. I believe in a new Uganda to create a new agenda for this particular country. Okama Emmanuel writes in from Mombasa, and he says, well, he is making a comment on the death of Raila Odinga. We'll refer to it during our next round of discussion. And then another comment comes in here. Segona, Semuju, Mpuga, and other intellectuals have all been in parliament when the following laws were passed: the age limit, coffee limit, UPDF Act, and IPOD. So where were these intellectuals to help stop these bad laws? The truth is, parliament is there for people to eat. Let Bobi Wine send for us more shallow thinking people to parliament, and we pray they... I think this is a bad word that I cannot read on air. But let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll get some responses from these comments and then shift our gears to our next set of discussions. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. We continue after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. A panel of 4 here in studio. Mr. Egesa Ronald is a business and political strategist. The Honorable Paul Mwiru is a member of the National Unity Platform, coordinating some districts in Busoga. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma is a researcher. He's also a political economist, columnist with The Observer. And Mr. Tumukunde Tony, a lawyer from the NRM party. He's also a pundit on governance and human rights issues. More comments coming in, and then we'll get responses. Rita writes in and says, the last gentleman, he was referring to you, Mr. Tumkunde, says, what does he mean by referring to regional specific issues? A political party manifesto is national in nature. Ooh. These are people who have divided our country to their benefit. The regional specific issues should be linked to the broader agenda. The others that are regional in nature are programmatic. That's a comment that comes in from Rita there, who is listening to this discussion. We have a comment coming in from Mukono from Kapka, who writes in and says, good evening, Spectrum Xtra. Indigenous knowledge is good, but its application is not measurable. Our minds were taken away by the colonizers to the extent that even the electoral process has to follow some kind of Western prototype. This has created a lot of confusion and even caused monetization of the electoral process. The only issue in this election is corruption. Museveni should be separated from corruption. If Museveni needs money, he just calls the Minister of Finance. The corrupt are among us who are not near Museveni. Now, gentlemen, let's get some responses if there are any, and we shift to the next subtopic.
I think first and foremost, I would want to respond to the person that said I regionalized the manifesto instead of nationalizing it. I gave examples that if you went to certain parts of this country, they have problems that they are facing. The problems of Busoga are not the problems of Mitoma, Shema. The problems of Shema are not the problems of Butareja. So whereas you have a national document that you're selling to the masses to vote for you and take you to the highest office of this country, you have to understand that every part of the country that you go to, you have to speak to the masses on how visible you'll be solving their problems. That is one. But also the other thing would be those that said about 2006, Dr. Chiza Besigye having crowds. I do not agree with people that think many crowds determine voter turnout over the turnout in this country. Crowds are brought by various factors. There are people that come because they want to eat rice. This political party serves rice. They have given out T-shirts. They want to see a musician. They have never seen a musician. Some people in 2006 were eager to see a person that was actually free from the rape cases and the rebel cases, and probably who had a chance to come out and stand now. They wanted to see that Besigye, a soldier that people were calling him a doctor that turned out a nemesis to the president. And so that is what a politician would do to sell himself out there. The people that come to see President Museveni, and the panelists would agree with me.
They're expecting something.
No, they are not expecting something, I guess. But also, you would agree with me that now the PDM, the areas where the president has gone, Lango and the northern parts of the country, the PDM has overwhelmingly worked for them. And it comes from the finance statistics. You would agree with me on that. PDM has overwhelmingly worked for them, the families. Okay. What could overwhelmingly work in the northern part of Uganda could not overwhelmingly work in the east. The poverty lines and levels differ. So if 1 million may not work for Paul Mwiri in Jinja, it could work
in Karamoja.
Yeah, it can work in Karamoja.
All right. Now let's continue our discussion, and we are going to shift our gears very quickly.
Yes, Wamai raised something to do with civic education. Actually, we are moving to the electoral. We're going to conclude the presidency, the elections, without civic education, and it doesn't surprise me. Like when my brother talks about PDM, actually there are parishes in the west which have 2,000 people and they get 100 million, and I have a parish in Mayuge which has 43,000 people and they also get 100 million. So you made more parishes in the west to access the PDM than the way it is. If you look at the UBOS, it clearly brings out to that. So I understand why you are taking that direction.
All right. Right, let's shift our gears, and now let's go to Kenya and look at the death of a political stalwart in the Honorable Raila Odinga. And I want to begin with you, Dr. Serunkuma. What do you think we are losing as a continent when it comes to Raila Odinga? There have been so many, comments coming in from all over the world about this political stalwart.
You'll excuse me. There's a comment I wanted to give
very quickly.
I think we are conflicted. The people in the opposition describe Museveni as an autocrat, and I think when it comes to election season, they forget that they're dealing with an autocrat. And we operate like we are in UK democratic space, and then we articulate issues. when you're dealing with an autocrat, you deal with the autocrat on his own terms. No issues. But I'll leave that at that and quickly run to the death of the stalwart. I mean, two reflections for me on the death of Raila Odinga, and I think it speaks my politics for the last maybe 2 years now. You know, I'm elite, but I also have some politics.
Now that you have accepted.
You know, Raila Odinga died of a heart attack. He's 81 years of age. He's age mates with our president. One of the things that struck me was death is real. And death is real. And old age, irrespective of the best of circumstances you could be into, old age comes with a million complications and fragilities. You know, I mean, for the last 2 years, I've argued that Museveni has to give this country a chance when he still can, because he's old. And many of his contemporaries have passed on, not because they were lacking in amenities, but because age is incurable. Age presents with fragilities and ailments and complications. That we're in a country where the only single active institution is the institution of Yoweri Museveni. The judiciary, parliament, religious leaders, the military, all those institutions are either dead or
Working at his behest.
So if he, as the single most unit holding this country together, if he pulled out, if he didn't wake up one single day, not because he overslept, but because he's run out of breath, there will be absolute pandemonium in this country. So for a very long time, for the last 2 years, I've been asking Yoweri Museveni that if he could give the mandate to somebody else while he's still alive, it could be his wife, it could be Salim Saleh, it could be his son. That, you know, it's a reminder. Odinga's death is a reminder that death is real, and at the age of 80, ailments, you get knocked out from the most unexpected of conditions. You see, so that was a reminder for me in the passing of Raila Omolo Odinga. But then there's another point, and this relates to my love affair with Kano Kizza Besigye, and the fact that, you know, Odinga didn't hold in political office. You know, in the life of a country, it comes to a point that we need to appreciate that those who held that country together were people in the opposition, never held in single office. It has been my submission for a very long time that the unit that held Uganda together has been Kano Dr. Kizza Besigye without taking political office. Because what Kano Kizza Besigye has done, especially in the 3 elections where he had cult status, there were calls for him to plunge this country into violence by choosing to resist this government violently. But this man resisted, even with threats to his life. He resisted this temptation for about 15 years. This is why, you know, this accusation that he was trying to, you know, go to Nairobi, find a way of getting weapons and then come and overthrow Madam Museveni in cold blood, as Andrew Mwenda used to say, are all stupid. Because this man is old now. In 2001, in 2006, in 2011, when he was younger, and there were absolute threats to his life, and he had a cult following. You think for a second, 1985, where Museveni lost, he didn't have a cult following. But he went to the bush, and he was able to actually win, but the amount of havoc he caused to this country is unimaginable. So think for a second that we had Kizza Besigye, 2001 to 2006, where he had a cult following, that even some sources have said he actually won these elections. But this man said, I will challenge the outcome through a judicial process. Even when he knew that he will not succeed, he chose a democratic path. Kizza Besigye has held Uganda together by choosing to continue democracy, even when he knew he would lose. That is the genius of Raila Amolo Odinga to Nairobi, to Kenya. And this is why he had this cult status. So I started thinking about Odinga's death through our own Kano Kizza Besigye, that he was a kingmaker without an office. So has been Dr. Kano Kizza Besigye, that he has been the man holding this country together. In fact, I worry when Kizza Besigye was very frail back at the beginning of his incarceration, we worried that he might die in office. And if he were to die in office,
prison.
he would die in prison. Then Museveni would get a shock of his life that this man actually held this country together and it wasn't him.
All right.
So we can actually draw parallels between
Let's go.
Odinga and I was here,
Right.
Kizza Besigye.
Mr. Tumukonde. Raila Odinga.
I want to first disagree with Doctor on age vis-a-vis the fear of service delivery and good governance. First and foremost, I think if you are to Google out, you would find out that over 9 presidents now, let it be Palestine, let it be Iran, let it be America. I think American president is 79 in June.
Palestine?
No,
Yes.
his issue was fragility.
No, it's okay, it's all right.
Let's allow him to conclude his point.
If you come to fragility and the ability also to hold the state together, you would then bring in Iran, that he was old, but they opted for an old person. But be that as it may, I would also not agree to the fact that it's only Kano Kizza Besigye that is holding this country together, unified, that he creates a national unit. I don't agree with that. That is a fallacy. Then also...
No, actually, his explanation was if he had
Why?
opted to go
Why?
to war,
Why do you think it's
then
wrong?
it would have been a problem.
He would have lost during the war by then. If he had gone to war, he would have lost.
Yes, he would have lost.
But-
He would have lost.
but
Why? Because of the
country
national
will never be
security.
the same.
Because of the national security that we actually enjoy, he would have lost.
Yeah,
That
but
one I would agree with
listen, I agree on that too.
Yes.
But this country would never be the same. In losing, he would have wrecked this country apart.
All right.
In losing.
Very quickly, let's
like
conclude your point.
any other war. But also, the death of Raila Odinga is taken to be the father of the Constitution. Most Kenyans call him the father of the Constitution, the father of the state, the father of opposition, according to
No,
how
not
you
the
want
father
to.
of the state, the father of the Kenyan democracy.
Okay, Kenyan democracy. Because of the role he played from the 82s to 2010, all these democratic reforms that he has brought. But it also tells you, and it brings back to, it brings a point here on the panel, that you have to take a bit of time in politics to galvanize a country, to galvanize the opposition. And it also took Kizza Besigye over 20 years to galvanize the opposition. It will take it will take Bobby Wine over 20 years to galvanize opposition.
You're becoming a good spin
Mr. Kesa.
I had the honor of working for Raila Odinga in 2017 and 2022. Raila Odinga, I have described him in 3 ways. He's the father of modern Kenya. He's the king who ruled outside the palace. And the third one is he was a political colossus who straddled Kenya from end to end. Raila Odinga, when I say was a king who reigned outside the palace, this is what I mean. Raila Odinga maintained an intelligence network across Kenya. So if you told Raila Odinga something in Turkana, he would pick his phone and he knew who to contact. You see the way President Museveni operates. He knew who to contact, and he would call somebody.
I guess I
in
know
the
how
village.
president operates.
No, because
How
he consumes intelligence. That's what I'm trying to show you.
Okay.
We were
But
also,
at the top,
we were also told the Bobby Wine
you consume intelligence.
consumes intelligence.
Yeah, the kind of network Raila Odinga enjoyed in Kenya. Many of the previous 3 occupants of the office of president, the previous 2, the last 2, including the current one, apart from Moi, have not enjoyed it until they moved to State House.
State House.
And that is why they could not maintain their hold onto the nation without him. Raila Odinga, for me, what I studied from him is that he understood that geopolitics and the history of the nation Kenya may not allow him to ascend to the presidency. So he made peace with the fact that the presidency is not a do or die, but he can shape the country for future generations.
In other
So
words,
he-
he chose
so-
to be a career opposition
Yeah, so
politician.
Raila Odinga, no, not a career opposition politician. No. he decided to shape the politics of Kenya to be an institutional-based politics. Today, when you see the Constitution of Kenya 2010 being hailed, and you see the joy that you saw with the judges, striking down BBI, yeah, these judges sitting and speaking truth to the president and telling him off, yeah, that is where the love for Raila Odinga comes from. That if it were not Raila Odinga persistently scoring marginal gains every cycle, yeah, pushing the limits, they will not get to where they are right now. Raila Odinga is also known as the father of devolution in Kenya.
Yes.
Because for eons he has been telling the political class in Kenya that don't concentrate resources at the center. Let's take the resources to the Wananchi. They need to, to benefit from the country. The country's resources. So that is the other thing. So this whole model that they came up with after the 2010 Constitution, having 2 levels of government, the devolved government now meant that the presidential politics was not going to remain the same. Why? Many of the would-be pretenders, you remember in 1992, 1997, you used to have 14, so many candidates running, and that's how Moi used to beat them with a minority. He would get, let's say, 34%, and then the opposition with the 66, they still end up losing. So most of the pretenders who used to be in the presidential race ended up going back to their areas and running for governor in their counties. So he, in a way, the devolution also helped to reshape presidential politics. The other thing, we have described Kenyan politics as a forest with the same trees and the same monkeys, but the monkeys keep shifting positions, jumping from one tree to the other. Yeah? But what we forgot to add in that description is that Raila Odinga has been the architect of those movements. He is a guy, because for him he maintained no grudge with anybody. And in fact, as of today, people were pointing out that, you see, Raila Odinga is the only politician, top politician in Kenya, who has never sued any media house for defamation, has never sued any other political player or citizen for defamation, or even threatened these letters that you lawyers write to us, say, notice of intention to sue. He has never. You see, Raila Odinga believed that people should be given the freedom to express themselves. When someone told him that this person who is coming to see you, we don't trust him, he would say, no, let them be. They are a Kenyan like you. Let them come, I will listen to them. So he opened up to everybody from every shade of political opinion. So now whenever he did the math and he saw that I need the votes from this area, he didn't fear to reach out to these people and say, look, I'm putting together an alliance which is going to shake the political terrain. And the other thing, Raila Odinga was a master of crowds. The moment you handed him the microphone and he started, the crowds will just move with him. And then he would tell them, from football commentary to riddles to biblical stories, he knew how to connect with the masses. So you tell them, now I am the Joshua, I'm taking you to the promised land. So I have seen Canaan, we are getting there. So he would make all these other guys that he has brought into the coalition believe that actually he's going to deliver the victory. Now, most importantly, people tend to concentrate on why he lost 5 times. Raila Odinga believed in institution building. He believed that an election that is credible does not require you to have agents, unless you are saying the Electoral Commission is made of thieves. That the Electoral Commission is paid to organize an election. So for him, he insisted that don't always tell me about agents, that, somebody ate agents' money, so we are not able to protect our votes. He was saying, no, we pay people in the Electoral Commission to do a job. So Electoral Commission has staff in every polling station. They must do their job. Right. So he was looking at a bigger, he was looking at Kenya from not where it is today, but where it ought to be. And he said, if it comes at my personal sacrifice, at my expense, so be it. At the end of the day, that is the Kenya that we want. And that's why he was misunderstood. And finally, people have misunderstood him, especially the Gen Zs who are claiming to be leaderless and rudderless. They misunderstood him in his latest move to reach out to William Ruto. Raila Odinga knew that if you leave a group, the ones he was calling the lumpen, yes, to come and lead a revolution and topple this government of the day, you end up with, a leaderless country. The state collapses. The democratic state collapses. So every political player loses. So he said, if all of us who have been trying to build institutions all these years, it would amount to wasted effort if we allow the democratic state to collapse. Now, to our young people, most of them did not understand that. But he said, for him, he always led the way and said the people will come along. I will explain. He would go on explaining and getting converts.
Earlier on, you talked about how there's some sort of agreement between the ruling class in
the elites, the political elites.
And I thought you were going to conclude that point by saying he has just been playing part of that game. But let's go to Honorable Paul.
No, if you want to talk about that, to be another day.
All right.
Yeah, another day.
Thank you. I've followed, but what I would first say that the Kenyan politics is a bit different. That most of the political players are also business people. Raila actually would have borrowed the NRM campaign slogan of this time of protecting the gain. Because in our context, they mean the gain of the 10 trillion which disappears annually, which they invest here. But in their context, it was also fit. Because you see, Raila would balance the public interest and the personal interest, because he was a big stakeholder in terms of business. On the other, that's why would I say he would balance? He never felt shy of speaking the truth to power. He manifested the resilience, protest, that whenever we would see space shrinking, he would come up to ensure that actually he knew that insecurity was not about the wealth. Because here you can find the elite in quotes, maybe in the cabinet, the one he was talking about. When they are miserable, they are tired. But they cannot speak the truth to power because they want medical attention. They would always tell us that, you see, I also see what you see. But immediately I get out of this, I'm aging, I will not be accessing medical attention. Meaning that they have mismanaged their own countries, that you cannot get sound medical facilities, that they are looking at getting the medical attention from out of the country. To me, I would say he played this part. The political capital accumulates. Maybe what my brother Tony had to understand. That as Raila, of course, stems from the family that they had participated. What may be the problem I have with most of these agents of imperialism, that I don't see any trying to dismantle the tools of colonialism. Whoever wants power, they want just to be on the throne. And yet our focus at one particular point in time, it must be.
But Raila dismantled the imperial presidency.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. If I tried to take that direction.
What do you mean by that?
The presidents of Kenya pre-2010 is not the presidents of Kenya today.
Now, today.
So it was a deliberate action by his team
Institutional independence.
That we must dismantle the imperial presidency and have a different kind of presidency.
And finally, what I also see, what he faced as a very big challenge, maybe imperial presidency, like for instance here, President Museveni can post, but he's also an agent of imperialism.
Yeah, so is
That's what it is. So I want to see him.
Life presidency.
No, sorry.
One definition of an imperial.
You see, but as I was
oligarchies.
You see here, for instance, we all talk all these things, but we know that there any president, be it even you, if you took power here,
me.
Yes.
Me, I'm a communist.
And you try to dismantle these tools of colonialism.
You're a communist.
They
put a bullet through my head. But I'm a communist.
But finally, what also I think he faced a challenge. You see, he believed in reaching out, in engagement. The problem, the difference between now, like our country and Kenya, that they didn't need a garant of what they would discuss. So it was about the leaders themselves. That when I talk
Now
to
that's the
Dr.
elite consensus I was talking about.
That when I have a discussion with Tony here, despite him being in a different political party, and we agree, I will carry this discussion somewhere and say, we have had a discussion with so and so, and we have principally agreed on this. Because the mind and the will of an organization, it is in the leader.
No, Bamwiro,
Yes.
you have reminded me the words of Daniel Moi.
Yes.
He told the voters that when you look at these people, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Uhuru Kenyatta and the group, they are like the jackal, the fox and the dog. They are cousins. Yeah? They may be on different sides at different points in time. But you, the average voter, you are the hunter who goes with these animals that are cousins to hunt. But what you forget is that when you get your prey, these animals can collude and leave you at a loss. They will collude and go run away with everything. So that is the elite consensus.
Yes, that's why the Gen Zs, in my view, misunderstood him. Because if you go on just on that path they took, without also the route for engagement, even in war, even when you have been seeing Russia fighting Ukraine, but the path to diplomacy is still
corridor.
They still engage and say, what are the issues? Can we agree on these issues, or issues which they have disagreed on? Because at the end of the day, now that he's away, I see some problem that even because they had even lost trust in some of the leaders. Like I had the benefit, I used to be with John Mbadi, who was the at all time the leader of opposition, was
the
part
chairman
of the Public Accounts Committee. We used to interact. But all the time when I visited him, I asked him about these handshakes and all this thing, and then he was telling me that, the problem is we respect our leader. But you see, it does not come to like organs of the party and say you discuss and say, I'm going to meet so and so. Because he knows. The time he says, you see, we discuss this matter, maybe it would even happen.